What's up guys, DuArktik here with another Marvel Strike Force video, and in this video we are going to talk about the heroes Asgardians. They are the hot team right now, and they are going to be one of the teams required for the third Scourge, the War Horseman. So they might be very important going forward, and that's why we are going to talk about their T4s, their ISO weight, in which game modes they are good on, and where should you take these characters, which characters should you invest the most. So like always, if you like the information on these videos, make sure you share it with your friends on Facebook and Discord. If you're new to my channel, make sure you subscribe for more Marvel Strike Force content, and make sure you smash that like button. Okay, so let's get started. And as always, this is based on my playstyle. My playstyle is more of controller, it's more of getting added functionalities, not exactly on doing more damage. So that's going to be the mindset here. Okay, so with that in mind, let's take a look at the T4s of this team. And before that, you can always find the information on my Discord. The link will be in the description. You have within the first days or the first week, you'll have this infographic with the T4s, with the ISO weight, if you should spend gold promos or not. And usually you also have the best game modes for this team, but this is not the final version yet, so it's not complete. Okay, so let's take a look at the T4s for Lady Thor. And when you do the T4 on the basic, you are increasing just the single target damage. So it's not a good T4. Usually T4s that only increase the damage, they are highly skippable. The same goes for the special, it only increases the damage. Here it's piercing damage and we are attacking multiple targets, so that's a little bit more relevant. But still, if you don't have the character at 6 or 7 red stars, it's not gonna matter much. Then we have the ultimate, and on the ultimate, when you do the T4, you get an added functionality, and it's available on turn 1. So this is going to be a very important T4, because you can apply blind to the primary target. And you also increase the damage done to all enemies, not just adjacent, all enemies, and is also piercing damage. So this is a high value T4, and this is one that I definitely recommend. Finally, we have the passive for Lady Thor, and the passive for Lady Thor increases the damage of her passive attack by 100%. That's okay, that's nothing special because she doesn't charge us that fast, and it's only single target damage. Now, what's really important about this T4, and this is why it's essential, it's because it always applies charges to other chargeable hero Asgardians, and this is going to be Valkyrie and also Thor. So this is going to allow Thor to charge up his passive way faster, and this is why this T4 is 100% essential. Okay, moving on, let's take a look at Valkyrie. Let's get all the new characters out of the way. And when you do the T4 on the basic, it increases the damage of the primary attack and the secondary attack. Now, usually that's a good thing, that's a good T4, in case you are using this character as a striker ISO weight. And also, if you have the character under your control, if it's not being controlled by the AI. So this T4, I'm not going to recommend it in characters like Star-Lord T'Challa, where you are using them on offense, where you are using this character with the striker ISO weight. This would be a T4 that I would usually recommend, but because it's not the case, because it's going to be a character mostly controlled by the AI, then I will not recommend this T4. And I don't think also the striker ISO weight is the best option for Valkyrie. So let's keep the basic. Now let's take a look at the special. The special, very important. Added functionality. It will stun the primary target if you do the T4. So this is going to be very important. This is a game changer, and once again, it's available on turn 1. Valkyrie is not the fastest character, but it's still very important. So this T4 is definitely recommended. Moving on, let's take a look at the ultimate. And the ultimate, same thing, added functionality. This time we have ability block. So we are going to apply ability block to the primary target, but this is only available on turn 2, so keep that in mind. The special is going to be more important than the ultimate because it's always available turn 1. So if you want the order of the T4s, I would do the special first and then do the ultimate. Even that, you should do both of them. Moving on, let's take a look at the passive. And the passive is an ability that is very good, decent, mediocre maybe. It's a very important ability. It's a very interesting ability. The problem is that it requires your characters to die, and that's not something you usually want. So it's an important T4, but it should be done after all the other T4s are done. After you do all these stuns, ability blocks, blinds, and so on, maybe you should consider this T4. It's nice, but because it requires your characters to die, it's not that great. So this is something that you might skip or leave it for last. For me, for my personal account, I'm gonna skip this one unless it's gonna be 100% required for the Scourge Horseman. Otherwise, this is 100% skippable. In case you care a lot about Alliance Wars defense, then this is one that you definitely have to do. Okay, so those are all the T4s for Valkyrie. Now let's take a look at Heimdall. Basic attack, it only increases single target damage a little bit, so let's skip that. Special, now this special is a trap, this special is a bait. This T4 might seem very good, might seem very important. The problem is here, look at here. The cooldown, this ability is not ready outside of Alliance Wars. Not only on the second turn, it's trash, it's a 2 energy out of 4, this is terrible. In Alliance Wars, there is a chance that you can get energy and you can get this ability early, but outside of Alliance Wars, this ability, it takes so long. Heimdall is a super slow character, and then you need his second turn to do this ability. 100% trash in my opinion. It sounds nice, unfortunately in practice it doesn't work, so I would skip this one. At least I skip it for myself, and I'm definitely not recommending because I just think it's a trap. It sounds very good, but in practice it doesn't work. Okay, then we have the ultimate, increase the damage in a few targets, not very important, 100% skippable. And finally we have his passive. Passive, once again, it only works on Alliance Wars defense. If it would work everywhere, I would 100% recommend this T4. It sounds very good, but once again, Alliance Wars defense, so you are not even in control of your characters. So once again, this is one that you 100% skip, unless you are like on Diamond Alliance and you need to be on your best performance. Otherwise, you can 100% skip this. Okay, so moving on, we have Sif. And Sif, on her basic, more increase of damage, we can skip that, not important. She does a lot of counters, but I still think it's not relevant enough. Then we have the special, once again increased damage, single target. This one is even worse than the basic, because the basic it activates with the counters, this one not even, so 100% skippable as well. And the ultimate, it's somewhat interesting, but it takes you can only use it on the second turn, so it's not the best option, but it increases the number of enemies that you attack and also the multiplier, so it's somewhat okay, but it's not mandatory by any means. And finally the passive. The passive is one T4 that you actually should consider. We have also 10% ability block chance. We have 10% chance of blocking the enemy's attacks, very important. And then we have Hero Asgardians gain 25% more resistance. Resistance is becoming more and more important, and because this team is so slow, they need as much resistance, armor, HP as possible. So this might be something that you consider, but only if your team is like very big, because if your team is going to be like 3 stars, 4 stars or something like that, this is not going to be relevant enough. So unless your team is already big enough, then you can skip this T4. Okay, so that's all for Sif. Let's move on to Thor, the legend. And with the T4 on the basic, you are gaining this flip defense up utility. The problem of this utility compared to the other utilities that we talked about before, from Lady Thor and Valkyrie and so on, is that you will never use his basic. And you can see that with the isolate attack, it does not activate this functionality. You can add here, you can see if you do the T4, it doesn't have this functionality. So you are only increasing the single target damage on the basic. It will not activate with the isolate. And to be honest, you will never use this basic. You are going to use most of the time the special and the ultimate, because Thor gives a lot of energy to himself because of his passive. So This T4, 100% skippable, there is no reason to do this. Then we have the special. The special is actually very good because right now we are recommending Raider for Thor for more damage output. And this ability attacks multiple targets. It also has increased chance of crit, so you are going to crit 100% of the time. And it has a low cooldown, so it's something that you are going to be using very often, and that means that the value of this T4 is going to be used very often. So this is a decent T4. Then we have the ultimate, and the ultimate is something that I don't fully recommend, at least right now, but whenever the horseman comes around, and in case you are going to need a lot of stuns, increasing the chance of stun is going to be very important. And while this ability seems very long, like Heimdall abilities, it takes several turns so you can use it. Here it's the same case, but the difference is that Thor can give energy to himself, especially if Lady Thor is around. Thor will get even more energy because of the way his passive works. So this might be a decent T4 in the future. Right now I'm not fully recommending it. It's something that you should have into consideration in case it will be required for the horseman. And finally we'll have his passive, and the passive increases his base damage by 5%, which is huge because his damage also increases based on how many Asgardians and Wave 1 Avengers are on your team. And on top of that, it also increases the damage that you do to all enemies by 20% with his passive attack. So this is going to be extremely important. This ability is very, very strong. Together with Lady Thor, this ability is triggering all the time, is constantly triggering, so this 20% on all enemies across the board is going to be very, very relevant. Okay, so that's all for now in terms of the T4s. Now let's talk about the ISO 8. And the ISO 8 is a big problem on this team because all options are good. All options are good. Fortifier, Healer, Skirmisher, Striker, Raider. All of those options are decent, at least decent. Now, in my opinion, I think that we should increase the chance of Valkyrie and of Mighty Thor to apply their negative effects. Once again, this is going to be based on your playstyle. If you are using these characters on offense, then Skirmisher is going to be the best option for Lady Thor and for Valkyrie. Very, very important, so you always apply the blind, you always apply the stun, you always apply the ability block. So, in my opinion, for these two, Valkyrie and Lady Thor, definitely Skirmisher, if you are using these characters offensively. If you want to use these characters on Alliance Wars defense, then Raider is going to be a good option because you are increasing the damage output and you cannot help the AI to target which characters you want to apply the ability block or whatever, so it's kind of irrelevant. Healer always an option, Fortifier also an option, Striker also an option, but once again, Skirmisher, best option if you are playing them actively, and then if you are not, Raider, if you want more damage. If you don't want more damage, then choose something else. But keep in mind that in the Scourge event, it might happen the case that we need this team and we need them as a healer, so it's something that you need to have in mind, and it's not a bad option. It's not a bad option, but best, in my opinion, should be Skirmisher. Now, let's talk about Heimdall and Sif. Now, some people are considering Fortifier for Sif, and it's not terrible, but I would not recommend, because with whenever you use Fortifier, it's characters that cannot actively giving themselves defense sub. And she can give herself defense sub, so it's kind of overlap, it's a little bit unnecessary. The barrier is nice, but overall it's not relevant enough in my opinion. It's not terrible, but it's not like amazing. What most people are using is, for both of them, is Raider. Raider for more damage output. Heimdall attacks multiple targets with his ultimate and with his special. And people are trying to capitalize on the big burst damage from the Raider ISO 8 to scare the enemies or to surprise them or something like that. So a few people are using them as a Raider, and I'm okay with that option. I think Healer would also be a decent option because this team needs a little bit more sustain in case you are using them actively. Otherwise, it's just a way to go. More damage with Raider or maybe Healer for the sustain. Beyond that, I don't really see other options. And finally, we have Thor, and with Thor, We saw from his basic that the isolate attack does not trigger the flip of the defense sub, which is terrible, because if that would be the case, then Striker would be a great option for him. But because it's not the case, then we are going with the second best option, which is the Raider. We are going to increase his damage output, and we are going to increase the critical damage from his passive. Now keep in mind that his passive does not trigger the Raider isolate as well. That's another problem. That chance of giving more piercing damage with the Raider isolate, it will not trigger with the Thor. It only triggers whenever you use the special or the ultimate. So this is also something to keep in mind, because whether you do Striker or Raider, both are decent options, but none of them is like the answer, because both have parts of their utility that does not work. The Striker with the isolate not flipping the defense up, and the Raider not triggering every time he does the passive attack, which is kind of lame. Okay, so that's all for this team in terms of isolates. It's a little bit convoluted because there are so many things to take into consideration. Now let's talk about the position of the characters. If you want to, I'm going to be honest, I don't know. In my opinion, I think we should keep Lady Thor and Valkyrie in the corners, because if we want to protect them, we want to protect both of them, because we want Thor to get as many charges as possible. We want Valkyrie to give as many buffs as possible to the team. So that's why we need Lady Thor to be protected, to make sure that she stays alive so Thor can get his charges more often. And the same goes for Valkyrie. We want to make sure that she's alive as long as possible, to make sure that she gives as many buffs for the team as possible. With that in mind, I decided to put Sif in the middle and Heimdall and Thor next to her, because these are also the characters that have more yellow stars and more red stars, because they have been available for the longest times. So for me, it makes sense to protect the two important characters and keep the attention in the middle on the characters that have been available for the longest time. Okay, so that's all in terms of position. Let's talk about the game modes now. And the game modes that we have, this position is wrong, I need to fix it. This is previously. Okay, so now we have on Blitz. Is this team going to be good in Blitz? Yes, 100% good in Blitz. Can you split them? Not really. You can kind of get Heimdall and Sif on other team and keep Thor, Lady Thor and Valkyrie in other team. That would be okay, but it's not recommended. It would be better just to keep them all together to make sure that they win 100% of the time on Blitz at 8.3. In terms of Arena, this team is definitely not good for Arena. They have Mystic. They are not. They are too slow, so they have no chance on Arena right now. In terms of raids, not good on raids because we have Mystic characters and we also have skill characters. So you cannot use them together on the Doom raids, at least on the Doom 2. In terms of Dark Dimension maybe, because we can split once again the cost of gear. We have some Mystic characters, but we also have some skill characters. So if you want to bring like Valkyrie together with Eternals, maybe. I would not recommend it. The characters are just way too slow. And even that you can do a full team, it's definitely not recommended because it has so much Mystic gear and we need that gear for other characters. So definitely not for Dark Dimension. In terms of Alliance Wars, they are very good on offense and they are amazing on defense. So yeah, they will definitely be good on that game mode. Here the yellow Blitz is the Avengers Tower, and I think they are going to be decent in a few matches before floor 70. After floor 70, floor 60 maybe, I don't think they will be that good, because once again most of their abilities are tied with Alliance Wars, and that's not great. So I don't recommend them to be used on Avengers Tower. And finally we have the Cosmic Crucible, and on Cosmic Crucible you can make some interesting combination with them, and they are okay on defense, but they don't get anything special. They don't have any special room that gets like huge influence, apart from the last room. On room 6, this team is actually pretty decent because they will have a lot more energy, but it requires for them to be super big. So unless they are full Gear Tier 15 or Gear Tier 16, this is not something you should have into consideration. And talking about Gear Tier 15 and Gear Tier 16, which characters you should focus the most on? Of course, it's going to be Thor, Lady Thor and Valkyrie. It's safe to take these characters at least to Gear Tier 14, maybe Gear Tier 15, because they have some value on themselves. They can be used in Blitz, they can be used in War, and so on. It's something that I would not recommend. Hold as long as possible until we see the next Scourge event and see if they are going to be required or not. Right now, this is the only team that we are aware of that is going to be necessary for that, but for sure we'll get another teams, and it would be really nice that we would not have it would be very nice that it would not be necessary to use this team, because unfortunately they are so slow that ruins the team. It's kind of lame. It's the same that they did with some unlimited X-Men characters. They are so slow that they lose their relevance, and therefore, once again, I don't recommend gearing them up, but if you want to gear them up, focus on Thor, Lady Thor and Valkyrie. Sif and Heimdall, just ignore them as much as possible. Maybe take them to Gear Tier 12, maybe maximum Gear Tier 14. Nowhere beyond Gear Tier 14. Heimdall is super expensive. Sif is not that expensive, but still it's unnecessary to gear up these two characters, and that's it. Okay guys, so that's going to be the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. All the information that you need to know about the Hero Asgardians, T4s, ISO 8, position of the characters, best game modes, everything that you need to know about this team. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you smash that like button, and if you found the information helpful, make sure you share it with your friends on Facebook and Discord. If you're new to my channel, make sure you subscribe for more Marvel Strike Force content, and I will catch you guys later.